But
that was Jade. Don't walk away. I've heard any number of people that try to tell you that Vice President Harris, she's Indian, and they will quote, many newspapers that say, well, it's the first Indian vice president. It's you can be two things. One dude went on to say her mother's Indian, but they didn't talk about her father, who is from Jamaica, whose last name is Harris. Harris is an English name. Where do you think a Jamaican would get a name like Harris from? Oh yeah. English people from England took people from Africa to Jamaica for the slave trade. They're talking about biracial. It's funny because the very people we are black because they said we were. As a matter of fact, they at one point said if you have one drop of black blood, you are black. Now those very people are saying somebody with half their DNA being black, it is not black enough. It's interesting because VP Harris went to an HBCU, and if you look at the history of HBCUs, the initial students there, and a lot of the students there at HBCUs were the descendants of slave owners. And they all kind of looked like VP Harris. They were very biracial, but they didn't call them biracial back then. They didn't call them, biracial. They called them octoroons and quarteroons. They called them suckers. They were illegitimate children of slave owners. They were the product of rape. But one thing they weren't was ambiguous about who they were. They knew they were black. Everybody else knew they were black. Everybody. There was never a case for ambiguity. They knew exactly who they were. If you look at many of the initial, if you look at the sorority where Kamala Harris, she pledged many years ago, AKAs, look at their initial founders. They look a lot like her for a reason. They look like that for a reason, because many of them, most of them are the people who went to those schools, the people who got further educations were biracial. They generally were, a lot of them, the descendants of slave owners. These slaves raped their mothers and didn't want their children in the field, so they sent them off to college, HBCUs and the such. But no one ever questioned what their race was, because if you had even one drop of black blood, you were black. Now we have people contorting themselves to tell us that that's not true. Byron Donalds, who is a congressman who in the last 2 months has defended Jim Crow, and a white man who's telling a black woman what her nationality is, what her race is, and who is married to a white woman and has biracial kids. So that's one hell of a conundrum. They're telling people who they are. And, white people hate the term identify because they have always been the one who told us who we were. You don't have to self-identify. I'll do it for you. I'll tell you what you are. You're black. You're not. They've always had that purpose. That's in the sole province of them. They hate when people self-identify because then what is their job? But now we have a clearly black woman who clearly went to an HBCU and clearly pledged a black sorority. You're telling her she's not black. The very same descendants of people who said that one drop of black blood tainted you to the extent that you were black 100%. There was no doubt about it. Now a woman who 50% of her DNA is of African descent say that you're not black. All I'm asking you, if one drop of black blood made you black, and now 50% of black blood doesn't make you black, all we're asking, dear America, please make up your goddamn mind. That's a little note from the GED section. Got the Jazz Report coming up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.